Hi, I'm Dave, and this is another What's in the Box. And I haven't done one of these for a long time, so I might be a little bit out of practice. But I thought it's about time I got into the swing of doing this again. It's a bit strange because I had that moment of, should I even be doing things like this? I mean, what's the point? I mean, let's face it, it's just a bit of, you know, bit of fun really, isn't it, I suppose, in the long run. And also I had something cool to show off, so let's do another one of these. So the lovely folk at Cubicle 7, disclaimer, I do work for Cubicle 7, I'm a producer there. The lovely folk there sent me early off the top copies from the print run of the new Laundry Files RPG, second edition of the Laundry. And so we've got the lovely Operatives handbook. Oh, look at that, lovely. Oh, and then there's the lovely gold edged Supervisor's guide. And so I thought it'd be nice to have a look through these and see what's inside. The first two core books for the Laundry Files RPG second edition. These are the limited edition covers, which are particularly shiny. Let's start with the Operatives handbook, which is the player's book, so to speak, of the game. So as you can see, it is got some nice foiling on the front there for the tentacles, and it has a nice silver block to it as well, and a bookmark. Isn't that nice? That is rather lovely. Cloth cover. Okay, so lovely end paper, designed by Gareth Slightholme, who does some of the illustrations that are in here as well. And that is the standard edition cover with a illustration by Nick Marinkovic, and the graphic design by Deanna, who's one of our graphic designers at Cubicle 7. Okay, so here we go. Contents, as you'd expect, 8 chapters, which take you through character creation, the basic tools of the trade, some magic, and how the game system works, and a little bit of an introduction to what laundry actually is. This is all based on the novels by Charles Stross, the Laundry Files. There are about 13 in the series now. There's a lot. They're all really good. Something a bit like Delta Green, only British and with a kind of wry Douglas Adams-y sense of humour. New introduction forward by Charles Stross, which is all done like a sort of introduction meeting, or an introduction and orientation training day. There is a lot of talk about biscuits in there as well. So chapter 1, this is just a basic introduction to the game system, well, the game itself. Another illustration by Gareth Slightholme again. Oh, nice. Look at that, lovely. An introduction to what role-playing games are, and how to use the book. You'll notice quite a few instances where there are footnotes, just like in the novels. There's a timeline of events taking you through from the Atrocity Archives, which is the first of the novels, the short story, actually the Atrocity Archive, and Concrete Jungle, which follows afterwards, which you'll get together in one book if you buy the paperback. And then through the novels and the timeline taking you from 2002 up to Case Nightmare Green, even includes the new book, which comes out this month, if I remember rightly, Regicide Report. But of course it's all been redacted because you don't want spoilers for the players. A quick introduction of what the basic rules are. This, unlike the first edition, which used the BRP system that you've seen in Call of Cthulhu and other Chaosium games, and this one has taken one of the Cubicle 7's house systems, which is affectionately known as C7D6, which was previously used in Warhammer Soulbound Age of Sigmar. Here's a quick introduction to what Capital Laundry Services are. It's a cover name for what is technically the Special Operations Executive left over from the war, and they're the government way of dealing with supernatural and weird stuff that is usually caused by messing with mathematics and computers. After all, magic is basically just the right equations. So there's a little bit of an introduction to in-universe, as well as a copy of the Official Secrets Act, Section 3, which you need to sign before you even get a chance to know what Section 3 even exists, which basically tells you that you're now part of the laundry and you're aware of the weird stuff that's going on. Okay, chapter 2 is an induction, which is basically your character creation. So there's a bit about custom character creation, but if you're familiar with the Age of Sigmar RPG, Soulbound, you'll know the way that it's structured. You basically pick a archetype. In this case, they're called an assignment, which is your duty within the laundry. And that provides you with some attributes, some suggested skills and talents, assign your equipment, add some details, get some background and personality and some finishing touches, and you're good to go. It's quite easy. So it'll take you through the basics of what you would expect for how to create a character before going into further detail on each of these sections in their own chapters later on. You also pick things like your distinguishing features, goals, short-term goal, long-term goal, and also your team, because let's face it, nobody does anything by themselves. You're acting as a team. So you define who your line manager is. Oh boy. And also your short-term and long-term KPIs, or key performance indicator, as you know in business speak. And you've got to achieve your KPIs in order to keep your employer happy. You can also look into ways that you're actually connected with the other characters using this handy roll on the table connections thing. And there's also an inductee questionnaire at the back of the book, which guides you through some of these elements to sort of flesh out the finer details of what your character's like. Okay, I think that is most of it. Some finishing touches like what your melee and your accuracy, armor, toughness, and injuries and things like that. The sort of thing that you'll need when you go into combat. Though thankfully, you might not have to do that very often because it's dangerous out there. There's a nice explanation of how the character sheet works. And then we're on to chapter 3. So this looks at the various assignments that you can take on in the laundry itself. So this is handily broken down into some spreads of each individual department, like Department of Auditing. There are 3 different assignments within that department, and here's how you start building your character. So there's the starting stats, what your core skill is, some suggested skills and how much XP you get to spend on them, what your core talent is, and some extra talents that you can pick, choose 2, although some of them have got little asterisks next to them, which means that you have to fulfill the prerequisites before you can pick them. And there we go. And your basic starting equipment, which usually includes a warrant card and a personal ward, usually a laptop if you're lucky. So we've got Department of Arcana Analysis, which do sort of some of the spooky stuff, as well as some, all-encompassing bits in there as well. There's the Department of Field Support, so it's if you're a little bit more on the gun side, although it does include Oculus Support Officers. Oculus is the Occult Control Coordination Unit Liaison Unconventional Situations, and they're a bit like Navy SEALs if they were all Doctor Strange, basically. It's pretty cool. There's Human Resources, so you get to be a liaison for inhuman resources, so you look at non-human employees such as deep ones, or possibly even worse, like being a zombie wrangler for working for residual human resources. Just because your character dies doesn't mean that they stop working for the laundry. They just might not be very useful as a player character, but they're very good for filing paperwork or basic guard duties. Internal logistics, so armory, couriers, IT. Just because you think, oh, that's a bit boring, being IT, computer help desk. Remember, lead character of the novels was basically IT support for a bit before he became... I shouldn't say that, should I? Okay, where are we? Department of Internal Security, so counter-subversion officers, media relations researchers, and invigilators. Legal affairs, because, running around doing occult things with the public, there's bound to be some legal ramifications, including apprentice demonologist. Department of Records, because they've got to file all these things. I love these illustrations. These ones are by David Galabrisi, and he does all the department illustrations, and yeah, love them. And so, curator, clerk, researcher, they don't sound very exciting, but everybody can do field work. And of course, R&D, so Q Division boffins, occult forensic analysts, yeah, all that fun stuff. So once you've got your character's basic little block that you've taken from here, it gives you an option to pick skills and talents. And so this all comes in the training section, where it explains what the skills are, how they work, whether you're trained, untrained, or have a focus in the skill, which allows you to tweak the dice when you've rolled them, because you're particularly focused on what's going on with them. And there's a basic rundown of all the skills. And here is the list of the talents. And as you can see, some of them have requirements. Here we go. So like to be a bad cop, you need a training of 1 in your presence, because, you're kind of intimidating. So here are all the talents, including contortionist. Always handy if you want to get yourself out of a jam or get to those snacks in the vending machine. Things like facing the crowd, which means you just sort of blur in and people forget about you, which is always handy. Having a military rank, having prophetic dreams, always really useful, or is it? And I think that one's for Virtuoso, which is an illustration from Mo, another one of the characters from the books. And then on to Operations, which is the rules section. This basically teaches you how to make a test. So all tests have a difficulty, which is usually the actual difficulty itself and the complexity of it. So the difficulty is what you need to roll on the D6, and the complexity is how many of them you need, because the task is particularly complicated. Usually, most tasks are of a complexity of 1, but here's a guide to what the difficulty numbers are. So when you have to make a roll, you roll that as many dice as determined by your attribute and the skill that relates to it. And say, for example, it's a difficulty for 1. As long as one of those dice is 4 or more, then you've succeeded. Here's a guide for how things change with the complexity. And if you get more successes than necessary, then you get extra benefits on the roll as well. There's some degrees of success. Natural awareness, extended tests, group tests, using adrenaline, which is like a bit like hero pointsy type thing, where you can power up your ability, your rolls, just to make sure things are working properly. You can take luck tests. You can use your adrenaline to take extra actions, double your focus, double your training, and then the GM has another scale called threat, which they can use to track how difficult things are, and threat gradually escalates as you go through a mission. There's a list of the conditions that you can take if you get injured, and then we go on to the combat stuff. So it's basically in zones rather than measuring things out. It's all quite quick and easy, and things like moving from difficult terrain, finding cover, moving in combat, jumping, grappling, all that kind of shenanigans. But yeah, what you'd expect from an RPG, which might have some dangerous situations. And what happens when you're actually injured, taking physical damage, broken bits and all that kind of business, as well as taking psychological damage, like becoming traumatized or having hallucinations, which is quite possible, the horrific things you will get to see. There's a little section on healing, pursuit, and vehicles. That's one of the scenes from the Jennifer morgue, if I remember rightly, with Bob being chased in a smart car. Onto the tools of the trade. This is the equipment chapter, which looks at common firearms and things like that. These are some of the traits that are attached to the weapons. So basic weaponry. Conventional spy gear, so you have things like locator bugs, fibre optic probes, drones. Bear in mind, this is the default setting for this is sort of 2005 to 2010, so tech isn't quite as advanced as it is now. However, to make up for that, you do have occult items such as Basilisk Gun, which is basically a three-dimensional camera which has the equivalent of turning people to stone, or rather supercarbonating people. It's usually quite explosive and messy. Things like the Eric Zahn violin, which Mo uses, which is one of the most cursed items around, and also the wonders of Hand of Glory, which if you know your occult stuff, you know what a Hand of Glory is. But yes, if you light one, then you gain invisibility, or you can actually, some of them actually can be used to as a weapon. Most useful item, of course, is the first generation 3G iPhone, also known as a Necronomophone, which basically holds a few apps of fast activating spells. Then there's personal wards, and the warrant card, which is a very useful item because it instantly uses a gesh on people and makes them forget that you exist, or allows you into places that you wouldn't normally be allowed. So onto Words Have Power, which is the magic section. There's a little chunk on handheld magic, which is all using the aforementioned phones and the set of apps that you get in the Offcut suite, which is the Occult Field Countermeasures Utility Trunk, as they call it. And so basically all the stuff that you can use quickly. Also, there's other ways of casting spells, whether it's mentally or through using traditional occult rituals, or using a computer. If you do it just in your head, that's the most dangerous way you could possibly imagine, and it will possibly give you something called K syndrome, which is Kranzberg-Gödel spongiform encephalopathy, which, as you can see, is best to be abbreviated to K syndrome, which is where you've basically allowed things from other dimensions to work their way into your brain and start feeding on it. The more you use magic, the more likely you are to get this, and it will lead to permanent dementia, unfortunately, and even worse. There are mishaps if you cast your spells wrong, and then there's a list of different spells. They're all in little batches, so there's like Proactive Protection 101 and the various spells in there, divination and detection spells, manipulation and control, always handy to have your good binding gesh, and glamours, entity control, banishing, exorcisms. Exorcisms are going to come in very useful. And of course, summoning, if you really want to do that. But of course, remember the one rule, which is never summon anything bigger than your own head. And then there's a little section at the back in here about basic guidance for life in the laundry. So basic security, looking after yourself, what to do at home, how to make sure that you're staying safe, what to do at work, looking after your warrant card, your personal wards, and your assigned laptops or smartphone, and what to do in case of accidental disclosure, or witnessing a supernatural incident, or being possessed, what it's like working for the civil service, just what you need. And right at the back, we have the inductee questionnaire, which is basically a great way of determining your background randomly. You can roll dice to work out which city you're from, what your personality profile is, or make something up, or be inspired just looking at them, like did you complete your secondary education? Did you do evening classes? Do you have a doctorate? Are you a clerical worker? Do you do skilled manual work? Remember, you don't have to be a scientist or a magician to be recruited to the laundry. You might just have seen something that you shouldn't, and they've thought that you may have some skills that may come in handy. What instigating event led to you being recruited by the laundry? Who are your known associates? Whether it's family or whether you don't have any at all. Any potential conflicts? Are there work colleagues, previous or current, that you don't get on with? Do you have any weird secrets? Do you have any fears? And of course, what do you want? So that takes you through some blank character sheet and a team record sheet at the back, and of course an index. So that is the player's book. To go alongside that is the GM's book. So the GM's book uses the 5 stages of bureaucratic grieving on the front. Yep, know that one, don't we? And this one, that's the standard edition cover. This one gives the GM all of the advice for how to run a game of the laundry. So here we go, taking you through the basics, what the world of the laundry is like. Math is magic. Magic is dangerous, but paperwork can be worse. And on to some guides for game mastering the laundry, how to structure your session, rotating spotlights, cosmic horror, techno thriller, spy thrillers, political satire, workplace drama. And nice reference guide to working out how difficult a task should be, as well as some optional rules to make it a little bit more cinematic, just in case the standard game is a little bit too dangerous for you. There's some advice for guiding the players through character creation and making sure that you have a fully rounded out team, and handy references for all of the assignments that we saw before with the illustrations, just in case the GM needs to refer to it. And also a handy reference for all of the talents, just in case the players have any more questions about them. A little bit about how to create line managers and an example line manager. And then we get on to how missions are structured. And a random mission generator, just in case you need to come up with a mission on the fly. Some guides for research and investigation, finding essential clues, analysing clues, and speeding things up, slowing things down, making sure your pacing's right, as well as facing the final threat, how to create campaign arcs, and what happens in between missions. You have endeavours that characters can undertake in the downtime, such as cultivating an asset, covering up what they've been doing some deep research, creating false identities, even going on a date. And here's some guidance for how to do all these sort of things. Oh, the dreaded performance review. And a little bit on team building, and then there's all the wonderful training courses that you can get sent on. This is quite a staple of the novel, is certainly the earlier ones, where you can get sent off on basic training courses such as defensive driving, the Certificate of Weaponry Expertise Unconventional, which is specially used for occult weaponry, as well as training in media relations and introduction to applied occult computing, which has its own book in this first wave of books, which is an adventure, almost like a big campaign type thing to get you started. So this chapter looks at the laundry itself. Basic structure of the laundry, which kind of looks a bit chaotic, but you know, I've seen organisation charts that are far worse, and they're real companies. So this basically looks at the various departments and gives a GM's eye view of what the different departments are, as well as some of the departments that haven't been covered in the player's guide, because let's face it, having a character that works in housing is not really exciting, maybe. But if there's a special department that has an NPC that you might recognise from the novels, for example, in human resources, we've got the stats and a basic rundown for some of these people, such as Ramona Random, and there's her stats, because she's a Type 3 Blue Hades Deep 1 hybrid. And then other characters such as Internal Logistics, oh dear, Iris, you'll know about her. Spoilers. Harry the Horse, Bob, Josephine Sullivan, you'll recognise if you've read the short story The Concrete Jungle, Alan Barnes, Roland Blevins, and of course the boss, Angleton, Boris the Mole, Andrew Newston, and Pinky and Brains. This also covers the rest of Her Majesty's government. Remember, 2005 to 2010 is still Her Majesty's. So it also looks at other things like COBRA, the Joint Intelligence Committee, what is going on with Security Service and the Secret Intelligence Service, and also looks at other places like other European institutions such as Europol, police, because you will have to work with the police quite a lot. Do mention officer friendly, Black Chamber. Just a brief coverage of the Black Chamber. We'll look at them later. 13th Directorate, who are the Soviet equivalent, and some of the other ones. So other laundry locations, such as, so we've got a quick rundown of London, Manchester, Dunwich, Porton Down, Camp Sunshine. We'll cover Leeds later. And then on to other areas such as Europe and the Americas. Only an introductory level at the moment. There's a little bit about playing the laundry in other eras, such as World War II or during the Cold War. And then we're on to the major threats that you can expect. So this is more like the creatures section. Basic laundry operatives, just in case you need them. A quick introduction to fangs. We'll cover them a little bit later on in a bit more depth. And also going on to ex-gnomes, so poltergeists, Food in the Night, gremlins, hellhounds, succubus, and then onto the really big things, which we won't cover. And then onto the actual physical things, such as Blue Hades, also known as Deep Ones, Deep 7, who are the, look at them there, it's gorgeous. Anning Blue Skull, Elder Things. Anning Black, and Game Andy's Redshift, Gorgons. A little bit about cults and corporations, and a basic introduction to the wonders of Case Nightmare Green. So there you go. That's the Supervisor's Guide and the Operatives Handbook for second edition of the Laundry RPG from Cubicle 7. We'll see if we can do another one of these for something else, possibly, or possibly the supplements when they come in as well, because there is the there's an adventure starter set which is all in one book, which is called Introduction to Applied Occult Computing, and then there's also a collection of adventures called Black Bag Jobs Reopened, which reprints some of the adventures from the original Black Bag Jobs, which came out 10-15 years ago, dread to think, and there's a couple of new adventures in there as well, and it's all been converted to the new system. And we're currently working on the next couple of books in the line, which I will tell you about later, hopefully. Okay, who knows, I might do some unboxing of some really old stuff like Star Frontiers or Price of Freedom or something ridiculous from the 80s. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that kind of business that YouTubers always say in their things. There's also a Patreon as well. It's a free Patreon because I'm an idiot and I don't want your money. I just want you to listen to my strange ramblings every now and then. So sign up on that and you'll get some of my weird comments and sort of strange blog posts in your email inbox, so you don't miss any of them on my website as well. All those links will be in the bottom, or also you can check them out on autocratic.com. Until next time, stay multi-classy.